Hello Idle Hero fans, thank you for tuning in today, as I'm going to be doing a video covering the second newest hero, Kroos. Most people actually requested that I do the newest hero, but I'm going to wait a few days to do that one because I don't really have the data on that yet, and I haven't really seen any good examples. But, as most people can probably attest, Kroos has already made a pretty big impact onto the competitive PvP scene. So let's take a look at him and try to figure out why that actually is. If you see his HP at the start, it's 498,000, which is actually pretty high, especially for priests. He's actually, I think, the highest HP of them all, so he's very durable. His attack is 24,000, which is not amazing, but it's not something you're really looking at in most situations when it comes to a priest anyway. His armor is pretty high at 1631, and his speed is also pretty high at 1168. So he's not really lacking in any area other than probably attack, but as I just stated, attack is not really the most important stat. His survivability is good, and his speed is good to make him valuable. His first ability is that he deals 150% attack against 4 random enemies and weakens them for 3 rounds. And while I personally hate how this is worded, because things like weakens doesn't really mean anything, I have found out from multiple people that the weakened status effect actually just means that the enemies that have been hit by this ability take an additional 50% damage for 3 rounds, and that is a tremendous amount of extra damage. Like, this is ridiculous when you look at the state of burst in the current meta, where you have things like As Model and Ice Blink that can just pretty much one-shot an entire team, or Vesa as well. If you add this 50% extra damage on top of that, it's going to be almost impossible to keep anybody alive. Even tanks like Brea are going to be getting one shot after an ability like this, and then an attack from As Model that crits. They're going to have no chance of staying alive. And then on top of that, he increases one random ally's energy by 100, allowing them to use their ability twice in a row, essentially, if they just finish using their ability this turn. And that's incredible. It kind of goes a little bit against the fact that he's faster than most units, but if you have a unit like, for example, Demon Hunter, that will attack and use their silence and silence everyone on turn 1 with a energy artifact, and then he attacks and gives them another 100 energy, they're going to do that again on turn 2, and that makes for some incredible crowd control combos. And when you look at crowd control combos right now, that's pretty much there's 2 things in meta. There's crowd control and there's burst damage, and this guy's ability complements both of those things insanely well. And I normally don't skip abilities, but I'm going to skip right to his 4th ability because this also goes right hand in hand with that. And this ability is why you often see people who have even a 5 or a 6-star Kroos on their team in the top 50 for PvP. Because when his health goes below 50%, he has a 75% chance to stun all enemies for 2 rounds. And that is absolutely ridiculous because you can't really dodge this. Even if he gets one-shotted, that effect will still come into play. And if you check out, say, for example, his 5-star, even his 5-star still has a 45% chance to stun all enemies for 2 rounds. That is the equivalent of a Demon Hunter ability, but with stun, and stun is a much more impactful crowd control than silence is. So when you have this as his level 5 ability, even having a level 5 Kroos on your team to complement to make the Rainbow Aura is insanely powerful. This is probably the strongest passive we've ever seen in this game. If not, it's very close. Definitely top 5. I think it's probably the strongest. I haven't gone all over them and tried to organize them. Maybe that'll be something I can do in the future, but for right now, I'm pretty sure this is the strongest passive, especially considering that you can, at 5-star, it's viable, and then even at 6-star, it's a 60% chance to stun all enemies. So you're looking at an insanely strong passive, and there's no way to dodge it because he doesn't need to use anything. He just needs to get hit. And most people who play with Kroos in their team have him in the first slot, so even if he's a 5 or 6-star, he gets hit once or twice at the beginning of the game and then stuns over half your team on average. And that is absolutely insane. His second passive is that his basic attacks target the backline enemies and deal 90% damage and reduce their armor by 15% for 3 rounds, and then heals 2 random allies for 20% of their maximum HP. So again, this is just an overloaded passive. There's just so much stuff going on here. They have 90% damage to 4 different enemies, so you're looking at a huge boost in his basic attacks. Of course, since his attack is not the highest and he doesn't really have any natural crit, I think there is a bit in the guild tree, but without any real like stats to help him out to do damage, this isn't really going to be that big of a deal. But it's just a neat thing that he hits everybody. So if there just happens to be one weak enemy on the back line, he'll take them out as well, just because he hits everything. He's not going to target the front unit. He's not dependent on hitting the tank, which can also help when you're playing against people who use Ice Blink as their first unit, because he is not going to power him up. He's actually going to go right for the back line, and that is advantageous in almost every scenario. He also reduces their armor by 15%, and that's where it kind of gets ridiculous, where you're attacking 4 units and reducing their armor by 15%. Like, that's a lot of stats that you're draining away because you're attacking multiple units with every basic attack. Now, since games don't really last particularly long, this isn't, like, gonna really add up in damage, but the fact is that he's stealing armor, and on top of that, making enemies weakened with his ability makes it very easy for other units to burst them down in one hit. And then on top of that, he just heals 20% of their health. And this is really important when you're looking at heroes like Asmodel, who's very popular right now, who has a pretty good HP pool. The fact that it heals for 20% of their maximum health instead of basing it off of his attack power makes it really effective. And his heals are pretty good. They're not amazing, but they're pretty good. And his second passive is just a stat boost, increases his HP by 30%, increases his speed by 60, which is why he's relatively fast, and reduces his damage taken by 20. And that's pretty good, especially considering he already has a pretty high HP pool. So making him take reduced damage and giving him a high base HP makes him a pretty good tank as well. So not only are you going to see people using him as a first slot because he has this passive that is insanely powerful, but he's actually not likely to just die on turn 1 or turn 2. Well, probably turn 2, honestly, because most people die on turn 2 now with the way that the late game meta has developed. But he has a better chance of surviving than most units would, except for some of the true tanks that are hard to fit in the current meta. Overall, I really like the way this hero shaked out because he is an Abyss hero, and Abyss did need a strong hero. He's definitely overpowered, though. Kroos is, I think, what's going to kind of shift the meta away from looking at just Forest, Fortress, and Light. I think now that he's out, there's a lot more lenience on being able to make Rainbow factions, Evil factions, Ruin factions, and all of the new ones that came out that include Abyss as well. He's going to be the cornerstone to that, though. He is going to be someone that you need on your team if you're trying to branch out from those metas. And even if you are currently running those metas, it has been proven very beneficial to even just drop your aura to put this guy in because of his third passive is so strong. And, of course, the weakened status. This is harder to get off unless you have him a high level, like 9 or 10. But if you can get this ability off, your team is going to be so much better for it. So I think Kroos is kind of he's going to shift the meta as more and more people start to try and get him. I've currently got him on my Super Casino wheel, and I'm aiming myself to get him as well because it's hard to deny how strong he is right now. I'm glad that the devs did seem to notice that Abyss did lack a lot of things, and they've addressed it all with one hero, so that's pretty cool. Let me know what you guys think. Do you guys like Kroos? Is this just kind of another blatant spend money please cry by the developers? Of course, it doesn't bother you if you're playing the private server, but it does shake up the meta regardless. How do you guys feel about Kroos? Let me know in the comments below, and thanks for watching as usual, and have a great day.